Hello, this is Jessi Sletten from Empowering Postpartum. Welcome to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is totally free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. I'm so happy we are all here today together for another episode of Empowering Postpartum with me, Jessi Sletten, your postpartum empowerment coach, helping you feel confident, prepared, and holistically supported for your unique journey into parenthood. And I am very excited to have on with me today Joe Peters, the Unicorn Coach, host of MOMFIT TV. And we're going to be nerding out together on one of my favorite topics, which is preparing for your fourth trimester journey before birth. And so, Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm happy you're here.
Hi, Jessie. Thank you so much for having me here. It's so good to see you again.
Good to see you
And yeah,
too.
it's a topic that we will not be able to talk enough about it.
Yes.
So happy to dive in.
Yes, exactly. Well, I feel like we're coming full circle here. I was on Joe's show before I got this show. So this is really fun now to have you as a guest. And I know that we both are very passionate about this particular topic. And I'll have to keep an eye on our time because I like to go off the rails sometimes when I'm passionate about what we're talking about. So it'll be a really great episode. But I'd love for you to just start out by, introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the work that you do. And then we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay. So I am originally from Colombia and I moved to the United States in 2012 because I used to work for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company as an executive there. And they moved me to the States in 2012. I met my soulmate there, then moved here to Ohio, was recruited by PepsiCo to do similar work around leadership and teamwork and operational excellence. And then in 2019, the alignment of my values with corporate America started having a big clash. So I decided to start my own journey, my own company into empowering women, into helping women to claim their power back and to remember that they are unicorns, not regular horses. So that is why very fast everybody start relating me with unicorns. So I become everything was unicorns around me. And that's because I believe that we all have magic inside of us. It's just that we sometimes forget about it. So what I love to do in life is helping people to remember their magic. And then I had a baby in the pandemic, and I have a background in health and nutrition. So I did all the search, all the study, all the preparing for pregnancy and birth. And it was a perfect pregnancy, a perfect birth. Everything went as it was supposed to. Everything was as I was planning. I was since the day that I find out I was at 5 weeks pregnant. I worked those 10 months every day, learning and knowing things. And then I get this beautiful baby, and then nobody told me about the fourth trimester. And that fourth trimester was a blur and a nightmare and very painful. So coming out of that fourth trimester around 6 months postpartum, I was having a lot of anger into like, why nobody told me this? A lot of my friends had kids. Why nobody prepared me for how of a chitty show this can be?
Yeah.
And that is how my branch of motherhood came alive and start helping moms around the world with my own show, and with my coaching into being prepared and knowing so they could we could discuss all the things that work for me on the pregnancy that maybe will help them too, but also make sure that they will be prepared for the fourth trimester and don't get it by surprise like it take it for me.
Yes. Yes, our journeys are so similar in that, my work also came from my own really difficult experience with the fourth trimester. And it is true. It's so true. We prepare so much for the birth and for learning about how our bodies are changing in pregnancy and how the little one's growing and developing. We have all these cool apps and, millions of books available, right, for what to expect in pregnancy. And there's just nothing out there for how we can prepare for how our bodies change and how they heal, how we can help that process become a little bit smoother and quicker. And then certainly there's this, and I'm assuming this happened with you, but correct me if I'm wrong, this disconnect with ourselves, like who we are as we're transitioning into this new role, as we're getting used to this new way of life and caring for another baby or another human being, who depends on us completely. It's that loss of self that can happen too. That's so just takes you by surprise, I would say, is a lot of what happened with my journey. So it's a rough one. So I'm glad that you and people like us doing this work is there to fill in that gap, because it's just not there. It's not available, especially at a society level. Not like we gotta get a lot of change stuff happening up here, right? But in the meantime, we're kind of down below trying to get in the trenches.
Absolutely. And I think that part of that transition on motherhood is that we took motherhood out of context and out
Mhm,
of what in nature was supposed to be. Because
mhm,
when you see the old societies and the old cultures,
mhm,
the mom was being mothering as well.
mhm.
They had
Yes.
very clear that when the mom gave birth, there was two newborns. There
Mhm.
was the mom, and then there was the baby.
Right.
And the mom had this support system around them because they all lived together, and their
Right.
mom and their mother-in-law and the aunts and the cousins and the grandmas, and everybody was cooking warm soups and everybody was
Mhm.
taking care of the baby, so they were taking care of the mom. And then as we start becoming this globalized
Mhm.
world where we are, first, majority of us away from our family and friends, and then
Mhm.
second, all of us just in that mentality of working and moving,
Right.
we forget that we have two newborns when a baby is
Mhm.
born, and we are completely neglecting the mom newborn. We don't have systems, we don't have processes, we don't have
Mhm.
awareness into that newborn that is completely a new person, because when we give birth we is a complete new person.
Yes.
um and I also believe that part of what triggers, and I don't know, I would love to hear your opinion too, is as more controlling and perfectionist personality
Mm.
you have, as more you struggle in postpartum,
Mhm.
because postpartum is the pinnacle of nothing is in your control. There is
Right.
nothing that you can actually do, because it's about that surrendering of
Mhm.
flowing. And then because we are not prepared to that, then it becomes a really big shock into how we used to run our life, into how we used to react to things, because now we just in some cases feel hopeless.
Yes.
And it's taking away that for years give us safety and grounding, that was the
Mhm.
controlling, the micromanaging, the planning, and all of
Mhm.
that is thrown to the window in the fourth trimester.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's this definitely the loss of this feeling of loss of power, of control, of not knowing how impactful these changes are, right? Like we know, okay, yeah, I know I'm going to have to heal, right? I have a baby, I'm going to birth that baby. I'm going to have to heal physically in some capacity. But even that is skewed. And we don't set us up for success in that regard either, because we're saying, oh, it'll take 6 weeks, you'll be back to normal, you're going to bounce back, it'll be great. And it's like the reality is that that's the bare minimum of healing, and there's so much more than the physical healing that has to happen. To your point, it's almost this like rewiring of our thought process and how we can find areas of control amongst the chaos, so that we do feel a little bit more empowered in certain ways, but also surrendering to the fact that sometimes we don't have control over other things. And so finding those places where we can prepare ahead of time helps us give that sense of control in that we've prepared ourselves. We know to expect the unexpected. Those kind of things, I think, really, really help when we approach it from a preventative standpoint in pregnancy, for sure. Absolutely.
And I think that is important to also know what you are saying about the healing is not
Mm-hmm.
only the physical healing, but the mental and emotional healing
Mm-hmm.
and the hormonal healing. Like
Yes.
it's
Mm-hmm.
again, when we were having motherhood originally, that was not a big issue because you had your entire community for years. So
Right.
that healing, a slow healing, was underestimated because it was
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Right.
That there are new researchers that are showing that it takes up to 18-24 months for
Yes.
your body, your hormones to go back to normal. That is 2 freaking years.
Right. Right.
uh and there are places like in the United States where 6 weeks and then we are expecting, oh, the minimum physical is done, you can go back to exercise, you can go back to your regular life. I was
Right.
thinking when you were talking on how crazy it will be, that a person goes into a surgery,
Mm.
goes into ICU, and as soon as get out of the ICU, they're like, "Oh, okay, go back to your regular life." No,
Right.
they actually know that there is a long period of healing. The
Yes.
surgery was good. Okay, you are not in ICU. Yeah, you are not in critical condition. That is what we do,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, in the first 6 months. In the first 6 months, we are in intense care unit. We are in critical condition.
Yes.
But
Mm.
after that doesn't mean that we are okay. We still have
Right.
a long time to recover and to heal. And then if you add to that the social media expectations
Mm. Yeah.
and the judgment and the lack of support from
Mm-hmm.
society and the realization that there are so many countries where you need to work, do two jobs to have a family regular income, all of
Right.
that keep adding complexity to that healing. That should be a
Mm-hmm.
time for the mom to recover and gain strength and find a new way to be with that little baby.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. The pressure is just at an all-time high at this point on our mothers in the society that we're forced to function in, really. And it is so true about the more traditional cultures, and this still exists in places in the world, right? And just this more modernized, westernized culture that we're operating under. The thing that's valued is independence. It's that sense of control and knowing that you can do it all, that it's just that's what you do, right? And so when we internalize those understandings before we get into motherhood, and then we are in motherhood, we apply them there too. And it's impossible to do everything that society is putting pressure on you for and that you're expecting yourself to do. It's just impossible. And to your point, there was a time when we had this village that surrounded us that could help take care of the baby and specifically take care of the mom, right? Like there's whole sacred rituals around the postpartum time frame in a lot of other cultures, even today around the world, where they have these lie-in periods. They have specific meals that are prepared for them to help with the healing, to help with the emotional understanding of who they are now, and to help with the hormones, because food, nutrition, and sleep have huge impacts on our hormonal stability. So if those things are being neglected, we're going to have a lot of the emotional things that are going to be turbulent still, even 2 months or however long, if you breastfeed past that 2-year mark, even, you're going to have an even further time where you're still in that postpartum time frame because your hormones are trying to meet the breastfeeding need for as long as you choose to feed. So it's so crazy to me that we have these expectations around us still, and no matter how hard we try, we can't seem to break through them. And it's really infuriating. I don't know. It's just one of those things where we have to just keep raising our voices and raising the awareness and putting pressure on lawmakers and all the things to have better maternity leave and paternity leave and all those things. But yeah, there's things we can do in the meantime to help empower ourselves. And so that's what we want to talk about today as well. And I know you were going to bring something pretty interesting that I have not actually heard much about, and it's about archetypes and how, knowing our archetype can help us plan for the postpartum period. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Absolutely. So before I will tell you a funny story. When I came to the
Yeah.
United States, it was so shocking to me seeing these tiny babies in the restaurants and in the malls. I think that the first time that I saw these tiny babies outdoors was when I was
Mm,
almost 30, because in Colombia is one of those countries that you have something
mm,
that is called cuarentena, 40 days, and
yes.
literally you don't leave your house but to the doctor. So
Mhm.
nobody sees your baby in the first 40 days, 60 days,
Right.
almost 2 months. And it's what you were saying, that
Mhm.
still is part of that society. So the
Mhm.
archetypes are fascinating, and they are personality traits.
Mhm.
So they are skills and strengths that we all have,
Mhm.
and depending on the first 7 years of life, some of them get stronger than others.
Mm,
And this is fascinating for us as moms, because it's not only understanding ours, but also understanding how much we are impacting our children's
mm,
life. There
yeah.
was a study last year that showed a correlation that even in the second trimester of pregnancy, so when you are 3 months pregnant, the fetus, the baby, start already capturing some of that information,
Mhm.
and then that goes all the way through pregnancy and the first 7 years. And in that, it creates almost like a footprint, like your fingerprint, that is
Mhm.
unique, and that is a mix of all of those characteristics and personality traits
Mm,
that are your default, and they
mhm.
are what make you feel more comfortable. And why
Mhm.
that is important, because when we are in postpartum, we are the most vulnerable, and
Yes.
we are literally on fight or flight response. We are
Mhm.
surviving because we are being tortured with sleep
Mhm.
deprivation. We are tired. We are not feeling good. Our hormones
Mhm.
are all over the place. So it's in those critical moments of fight or flight response where the reptile brain takes over.
Mhm.
And when the reptile brain takes over, it's important to know which of those archetypes are the dominant ones,
Mm,
so that we can prepare and plan into, these are my archetypes, this is more likely to be the way that I react. So then we
mm,
can
mhm.
start playing a proactive game instead of reactive. So instead of just waiting until things show up and we react and we don't understand why we are behaving like that, then
Right.
we do more like a planning part into, when we have time in pregnancy, start understanding,
Mm,
okay, what are my archetypes? What are my top three? How I can balance them? Literally, this is super important, and I don't think that a lot of people think about how I want my pregnancy to be. I don't think that
mhm.
a lot of people put time into how I want my fourth trimester to be. And
Right.
when we start thinking that the fourth trimester is part of pregnancy almost, because both your
Mhm.
body and your baby think that they are still together,
Yes.
then how powerful will be that we start saying, oh, how I want to live my fourth trimester. What are
Mhm.
the things that are non-negotiable for me there? What are the
Yeah.
things that are very important for me to have? It's very important for me to have support. It's very important for me to have this couple of things every week. So then from there, we start having our wants and needs, and then start matching them with our archetypes and
Mm,
personality traits to actually give us a fair chance to enjoy that beautiful time. And
mhm.
one of my biggest traumas is I did not enjoy my newborn. Like
Mm,
I had postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. I am enjoying my toddler now a lot, but I look
mhm.
back and it really hurts that I
Yeah.
didn't enjoy it because I was in such a survival mode without
Mhm.
a plan, without a clarity of what I was expecting or what I want to try to balance, that I miss my son
Mhm.
of 2
Yeah.
months.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it really touches my heart because I have a very similar experience with my first birth and my first son. First 6 months of his life, I have very little memories. I have my pictures and my videos that I took, and I am very forever grateful for that because I can look back and see those moments, but I was not present for them. A lot of times I tell moms, like, when you're in that such a state, you're almost in this trauma response, right? And for me, it was dissociation. Like, I was so far removed from my own bodily experiences, my own mental health, that it was like I'm not online. Like, I'm just literally a robot. Like, take my baby was taken care of. There was never a moment where he was neglected. There was never a moment where I didn't feel that love for him, but I didn't get to really be present for it, right? And really felt like I was bonding in the way that I expected would just happen. And I think that's another big thing why people don't plan for their postpartum is because we think that it's just going to be this natural thing where we all of a sudden download our maternal instincts and we know what to do. We know how to care for baby. We know how to care for ourselves. Breastfeeding's easy. All these things that we just assume. So we're like, I don't need to worry about that. It'll just happen naturally. And that was not the case for me. So that's why I'm so passionate. I'm like, look, I know you think it is all going to happen. If and it does, great. Like, you won't have to worry about it, right? But if it doesn't, you're going to have that plan for, like Joe is saying, like, how do you respond in moments of crisis and moments of, just insane amount of stress, and how you have these different understandings of yourself with these stress responders. How do you plan for that, right? And make these you know what are they, like, grounding techniques almost, or things where that can help you be in your body in a safe way again, so that you can start to interact with the things around you, and so you're not so far dissociated that you're not enjoying your fourth trimester, because that's the last thing that we want.
And it's important and critical to give it a thought. And I love what you said into being present,
Mhm.
um because it's that part of enjoying. It's easy? No, it's not easy. And
Right.
probably because I'm an engineer too, it come really easy for me to think like that. But you're absolutely right. There are a percentage of women that are lucky that their babies asleep through the night, that
Mhm.
their boobies produce 6 ounces of milk
Right.
since they're two. The reality is that
Mhm.
they are not the majority.
Right.
They are the exception. But
Mhm.
because those are the only ones that we see and advertise,
Right.
then that is the ones that we compare ourselves, and that is where we have our standard. So we don't
Mhm.
plan for anything else. And the reality is, in the distribution curve, they leave behind over 90-95% of the other cases.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And I always say, in Colombia we have a saying that says, a man, a person that is prepared wait for two, something like that in
Mm,
translation.
mhm.
But it's like, I always tell also my moms and my clients, if you don't need them, if you don't need a lactation consultant, if you don't need a coach, if you don't need a counselor, if you don't
Right.
need a psychiatrist, amazing.
Right.
But you already have the connections. I always tell them
Yes.
that it's almost postpartum for me is, we are playing the world champion in soccer or the Super Bowl.
Yes.
The mom is the head coach, and she needs
Mhm.
to have a team of coaches behind her to help her.
Yes.
She may not use them all, but
Mhm.
what a blessing that if any of those variables that sometimes we don't even think about until we are in the
Right.
trenches happen, you have that almost feeling of relief, that you are like, oh
Mhm.
my God, I know exactly who to call. I know
Yes.
exactly where to go. I know exactly what to do on this surprise. Or if you don't know exactly what to do, I know exactly who to ask,
Yes. Mhm.
that will help me. And I think that that is the missing part to avoid all that postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety.
Yes.
I remember talking with my postpartum doula in my room upstairs, crying, telling her like why this was so hard, and I
Right.
never thought about it. And then we were talking about that expectation, and she said like, well, the only moms that you see outside in the park happy with their
Mhm.
newborns are the ones that are not having the issue that you are having, because all the other moms that are having the issue that you are having are like you in a
Yes.
corner in their room
Mhm.
crying. So
Yes.
it's not that you are the only one and everybody is okay. Is that literally the concept of the iceberg. You are comparing the
Mhm.
top of the iceberg with your entire iceberg, and
Mhm.
it's not fair. And that
Right.
is what I think is important to start knowing ourselves and our archetypes and our personalities in simple things, Jesse. Like, for example, my husband and I,
Mm.
if I am sick, like I'm right now, my
Mm.
level of tolerance with my toddler goes to -50.
Yes.
If I am not sick, if I'm feeling
Yep.
good, I am the most patient and we can do it. If
Mhm.
I am sick,
Yeah.
my tolerance is not non-existent.
Mhm.
For my husband, archetypes and personalities, he's not like that. Even
Mm.
when he's sick, he can still have a lot of level of tolerance. Why that
Right.
is important? Because like this week that we are all sick,
Mhm.
then we all know, and him and I are aware that he needs to rely a lot more into Elliot's
Mhm.
routine, because my level of tolerance, my window of tolerance is non existent. And
Right.
that doesn't make me a bad mom. That makes me a
No.
good mom that
Yes.
understand my triggers and understand that when I'm sick, my cup is so empty that I don't have much to give him.
Right.
And instead of getting judged into, oh, but what is wrong with me? Why I can do that? It's like, yeah, when I'm not sick, I can do amazing things with him. And that is
Yeah.
an example of how when we know these archetypes and we know which are those personality traits that are the strongest for each of
Mhm.
us, then we can start almost like a chess strategy match into
Yes.
knowing where I can shine and where it
Mhm.
becomes a little harder, then who else can help? If it's not a
Yes.
partner, a family member, a friend, or somebody else.
Yes. Oh my gosh. There's so much that you just said there that I'm just like, I love everything that you just said because it's true. First thing, I love that you mentioned you and your husband like understanding each other's stressors, triggers, and how you can compensate for the other, right? And that's another thing that a lot of expecting parents, they don't have any of these conversations, right? And they don't understand because how could they? How much having a child impacts your relationship together, and that is one of the biggest things that I also encourage, the moms that I work with, like sit down and have these discussions with your partner before so that you can really understand how you communicate well, where you need to work on your communication, how you can help each other when times are stressful and how you can turn toward each other instead of away. And then we don't see as many fissures and cracks in the foundation of your relationship when you are strong and entering in parenthood together as a team versus just assuming that the other person knows these things about you or that you know these things about your partner. And then you get into, the weeds and you're like, wow, everything you're doing is pissing me off, or why are you not helping me? And they're over there like, what's going on? Because you guys aren't communicating and you don't understand what the other one needs when things get hard. And so I love that you mentioned that because I think it is one of the bigger pieces too that we really don't think about before we're in it.
And I will tell you, and I always say this with a caveat, but I really don't remember where I read it, but
Mhm.
I thought that was brilliant. Connecting to, it takes almost 2 years for a mom to completely heal. There is a trend in the world that is almost like a contract
Mhm.
between partners saying we are not going to even discuss divorce and separation
Mhm.
for the first 2 years of life of the baby,
Mhm.
because there is being a lot of data that shows that a lot of marriages broke there,
Yes.
and a lot of times it's not because there is not love, it's because it's exhaustion. They are not talking, they don't have the tools. So I'm
Right.
doing the caveat because, of course, if you are in a violent relationship, if
Yes.
you are being abused, this
Right.
doesn't apply to you. If you are being
Right.
abused, you need to get out
Right.
as soon as possible. But if you are in a before the baby, you were in a
Yes.
good relationship, healthy
Mhm.
relationship with not abuse mentally, physically, or verbally, and then you get a struggle. I signed that with my husband. I was like, probably the next 2 years are going to be messy,
Yeah.
and as messy as they are, and as much as we want to get divorced and not see each other ever again,
Mhm.
we commit that we are not going to have the conversation until after 2 years to make
Yeah.
sure that the conversation is coming from a place of not exhaustion and not
Yes.
everything else that is happening in postpartum. So
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting, yeah, concept to think about because I think that that is true. A lot of the problems, I think it was Gottman, research, I think it was about 70% of all couples or partners report, hurt feelings, disappointment, and resentment after the birth of a baby. I mean, that's the majority of us. Like 70% of us in our relationships struggle immensely after the birth of a baby. So, it's important to understand that this human is going to disrupt a lot of stuff. And so it's super important to continue to nurture that communication, nurture that relationship outside of being parents. Like, who are we? How are we connected as the two people who came together in love? And how can we continue to do that differently than we did before? Because we have to make adjustments, right? You just have to when you have a newborn and a baby. Like, you're not going to be able to go on a romantic, dinner date like every week. Like, that's just not possible. So, where can we make those tweaks where we still are nurturing our relationship so that we can really be the best partners we can be.
and I absolutely love that you call it out,
Mm.
because that is the same with our relationship. It's the same with get back your body after you give birth.
Yes.
It's all like that illusion that we can get back. No,
Mhm.
if
Right.
anything come from the discussion is all the moms making peace with the idea that
Mhm.
you are a new person, you are a
Exactly.
new woman, you are a different woman, and as a different woman there is no way to go back because that person doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And I love that because it's about making it work,
Yes.
and don't getting into that. We as women are very good into that all or nothing mentality of, if I
Yes.
cannot go and get makeup and hair and go
Mm.
to a nice restaurant, then we cannot have any time. Like,
Right.
you will not believe how much it start becoming an anchoring time for us in my marriage, where Friday and Saturday Elliot goes to bed, and then we make a little bowl of popcorn, we make a
Yes.
bowl of cheese, and then we lay
Mhm.
down in bed and watch 1 or 2 episodes of a series,
Yes.
snuggling. Was that ideal before? No. But that
Mhm.
is a reality of what we can create now. And talking
Yeah.
about the planning, because I
Mhm.
think that if anything I could go back, is I will spend a lot more time in my pregnancy. And
Mhm.
when I start thinking in having kids, planning that for trimester, planning those postpartum months, is start planning things like that. Like, okay,
Mhm.
what are the things that we like to do? Realistically, in the
Mhm.
first 3 6 months of the baby, how much we're going to be able to do that? Okay, what is a plan B? What is a plan
Yeah.
C? Not only with your partner, with yourself, for example,
Yes.
because I'm a ruler, I'm one of the archetypes. I am a very go-getter, moving, high energy. So I love high intensity exercise. I love getting my butt kick in the gym. The
Right.
reality was that in the first 9 weeks,
Mhm.
I didn't have physically the energy and the stability to do it.
Yeah.
So planning to that, okay, I cannot do that. What I can do to still move my body, what I
Yeah.
can do to still feel that I'm a woman, that I'm sexy,
Mhm.
that I am not that old person anymore, but I'm still me, and how I can discover myself
Mhm.
in a beautiful way, like I discovered my son. Like, we
Yeah.
all probably remember every time that our babies do something new or then
Mhm.
start discovering the world. We are there witnessing
Yeah.
and celebrating them discovering themselves. And if we
Mhm.
start thinking on us as newborns, and for example, I'm a 3-year-old mom. I don't
Mhm.
have. I'm not a 40-year woman. I am a
Mhm.
3-year-old mom. I'm only been 3 years into this journey, and we
Mhm.
can start showing that grace of
Yes.
allowing ourselves to discover that phase of motherhood with eyes of kindness and love and compassion and excitement, because it really changes. As hard as it is, it really changes, and most of the time for the better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm getting misty-eyed because that was so beautiful. It's so true. It's like, if we think about it as we are this new person, this newborn mom, oh my gosh, how powerful is that of a change, right? We don't expect our babies to come out of the womb talking and walking and being able to go to the bathroom and wipe their own butts. No, of course not. We know that they're going to be in a journey, right? They're going to be failing and learning, and we're going to be excited about all of it because it's they're making their own way. They're becoming their person that they're going to be, right? And the same should be applied for ourselves. Like, how powerful of a mind shift to think of it that way and be like, wow, look at all the things I have accomplished in these 3 years of me being a newborn mom. Like, wow, like the difference from day one to now, I can do XYZ. Or even, I tell my clients, because I'm a lactation counselor as well, it's like we get this idea of like, I have to fill this full 5-ounce bottle, right? Well, instead, like if we're pumping, or instead we can be like, wow, yesterday I only got an ounce, and today I was able to get an ounce and a half, and that's progress. Like, I'm proud of myself, and like really celebrating those baby steps and accomplishments instead of being like, ugh, it's not where I want to be. That's not good enough. We would never do that for our babies.
We will never, but we do it with ourselves all the
Yes,
time.
all the
And
time.
I believe that that is part of that softness of that fourth trimester. That is one of the biggest lessons for us into, you were saying, being present with our babies,
Yes.
and also maybe being present with ourselves, into allowing ourselves to know. I don't know if you ever saw that graph or graphic of the caterpillar that becomes a butterfly,
Oh, yes. Hmm.
and I start seeing that postpartum probably is that time where the caterpillar is in the cocoon and
Yes.
is all gooey and uncomfortable.
Right.
But the caterpillar is not saying like, "Oh my god, I'm so disgusting. You cannot believe how
Right.
ugly I am. Ew, nobody will ever love me." No,
Right.
the caterpillar grows. That's part of the metamorphosis. That's part
Yes.
of that building your wings. And then
Mm.
we start seeing postpartum because it's the opposites. First, understanding that you need to invest time on understanding postpartum, on everything that could happen. I don't want to be pessimist, but be prepared for all the things that could go not as you were planning, so you are prepared. So from one side, understanding that is a very hard time, especially in a society where we don't have community support like we
Mhm.
should have.
Right.
But in the other one, how we can find ways to celebrate that
Mm.
partnership and that difficulty and that challenge as a way of us transforming into
Mm.
this new version of us that is a mom that is being present for herself, that is present for their children. Because
Mhm.
I think that we talk about this with you in my show, there is nothing that probably motivate us more as
Mm.
moms that knowing that what we are doing is having a positive impact on our children, and
Yes.
start with us, and
Mhm.
start in postpartum. And what I will say to everybody that is hearing us, it's not about shame, but
Mhm.
here Jesse and I telling you how we still have that sadness and that trauma of not being present and enjoying our newborns.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like that for you.
Right.
You have experts like Jesse, like me, like many others that are there to help you and support you to make that rough transition smoother. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be that hard. It doesn't have to be as hard as it was for Jesse, and it doesn't have to be as hard as it was for me.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes. It's still being aware of the hardness, like you said, but also seeing it as an right? We don't grow if things are always easy, right? And so we know that there's going to be hardship, but how are we planning on growing through that instead of just feeling completely bowled over by it, right? And being like, okay, how can I put supports in place? Make sure my nutrition, I'm nourishing myself in a way that's going to support my healing and support if I'm choosing to, breastfeed, all of these things, right? And embracing those tools for growth, I think, is one of the biggest things that I had shift in my mind when I had my second child, because I was like, I'm not doing that again. That experience not happening again for me. So what can I do different this time? And that was it was a really beautiful thing for me because I was able to re-enter motherhood on my terms. And yes, I'm not saying that I won't carry that grief with me probably for the rest of my life, that I don't have those memories and that connection like I would have wanted to, but I am forever grateful in the growth that I did get from that. And Joe and I are here to make sure that that path for you is much shorter. We want you to not have to have all of that struggle that we did here, maybe just so much here where we can get you way more ahead, where you can be like, all right, this is challenging, but I can do this. I'm going to grow through it. I'm going to be the person that I was always meant to be, and that I want my children seeing and me modeling that strength for them, for sure. Oh
And I think that
my
this is
goodness,
something
I'm getting
I
goosebumps.
think that this is something that you and me agree on, and is start with us.
Yes.
We cannot give from something that we don't have. And that is why the message is investing on learning about yourself, into
Yes.
knowing those archetypes, into knowing your tendencies, into knowing your triggers, into
Mhm.
knowing if when you are sick you have more patience or less patience, or
Mhm.
when you are in your period
Mm.
you react more violently. All of
Yes.
that is about you to start, if you are pregnant, capturing all of those behaviors and moods as a
Mhm.
guide. And then if you are already in
Mhm.
postpartum, it doesn't matter if you are 1 month postpartum or through almost 3 years like me,
Yeah.
it's never too late. It's never too
Mhm.
late, because as more you are aware of that, as more you are going to see that reflection and that connection with your children and with your partner and with your relationships. And
Yeah.
then you are going to be able to, what all the yogis and enlightened guru said, make the pause, and then
Yeah.
stop working from the reptile brain all the time without control,
Mhm.
and then instead pause, and then have the choice of
Yes.
decide what you want and how you want to handle it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's oh yes, that's absolutely true. And I think one of the things that I always tell moms that I'm working with too is like, how can you find ways to feel seen, heard, and in control as much as possible during this transition? It's so important to be seen and heard in a way that validates you in your experience. So that's when we talk about picking people and curating your village, because we don't get that automatically. And even if we did, maybe some of those people that would have been in our village aren't the best fit for supporting us, right? And so find power in understanding that you do have control in finding those resources to fit into your village, so that you do feel validated and seen in your journey and not dismissed or ridiculed or feel like, oh, why are you complaining? You have a perfectly beautiful, healthy baby, and all those dismissive things that we can hear sometimes. I think that that's another area where we can really lean into that power that we can find within ourselves and find those right people and supports for sure.
I absolutely love that. And I love how you said, like, you need to filter and make sure that you have the right people. And I was thinking that part of that comes into the acceptance and understanding. So if
Hmm.
you are a female and your partner is a male,
Hmm.
that they communicate different. And I
Yeah.
know that you said this halfway through the show, and I want to emphasize your topic there again, and is how important is to invest on a couples therapy. Like,
Yes.
sometimes we think that I am only going to go to couples therapy before I get divorced, of if we have
Hmm.
an infidelity. And sometimes couples therapies can be super preventive, or courses
Mhm.
where you have the conversation of how do we communicate that, like you were saying, when I am telling you this, what I'm expecting, what I need from you,
Mhm.
and give a fair chance to those people that are closer to us to help, because I also believe that people want to help.
Yes.
I actually
Mhm.
never found somebody that's like, I don't want to help
Right.
Jessie. Yeah,
Right.
she can die in her own hole and I don't care.
Right.
People by nature are like wanting to help. And a lot of
Mhm.
time for us moms in postpartum, especially in the fourth trimester, is for us to feel that it's okay to receive help. And it doesn't
Yes.
mean that we are weak or we are not good enough
Yes.
because we are receiving the help that is available.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Really leaning into the strength of accepting and asking for the help is really, really, really key. And it's not something that we are used to as women and as, people trying to make their way in the world. And so practice, practice, practice. The more we can practice it, it's going to become second nature for us. And in postpartum, it is a season of receiving. You need to be able to receive it. As so many people think it's a season for giving and just pouring into our baby. And yes, it is. But in reality, it is a season for receiving that help and that love and that nurturing. It's so, so important. Oh my gosh, I told you we were going to have to really look at the clock because I I am having so much fun with this conversation and we are getting close to the end, and I want to ensure that you have a chance to just share how can people find you, where they can connect with you, and all of the great things for getting a hold of Joe.
No, I would love to share that you are never alone and you were never meant to do this by yourself. It's
Mhm.
not a badge of honor to
Oh,
suffer in silence,
yes.
pretending that you can do it all. So that first, and
Mhm.
how you can reach out to me. I am in all social media, Joe Unicorn Coach, Facebook and Instagram. You can send Jesse and I a message telling us what you thought about the program, if you have any questions. And then you can go into my website too as Joe Unicorn Coach to see all the things that I'm doing, both on one and also with my lifetime communities. Because like I said in my TV show in MOMFIT,
Mhm.
that airs every Friday at 10 a.m. in Single TV too, is our goal is helping you to win the marathon of motherhood. We
Yes.
want you to win because as you win, we win, and everybody wins.
Oh my gosh. Yes. It all starts with the mothers, right? It really does. And when we're winning, our babies win, our communities win. It's just this beautiful domino effect. It's so, so true. Oh my goodness. Yay. Okay. This is great. Thank you so much, Joe. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And like Joe said, I would love to hear you guys' feedback on the show, what you thought, what you took away from it. We love to hear that kind of thing. So we know we're covering the right stuff that's inspiring for you all. And just as a quick reminder, I actually am launching an online course that covers all of the stuff we just talked about. So, how you can prepare for your postpartum in pregnancy. And I cover these 5 pillars of postpartum wellness, is what I call it, which addresses all of these things we talked about: nurturing your relationship, ensuring you're nourished with the right nutrition, making sure you have all the things in place. So, if you're interested, head to my Instagram. In my bio, there's a link for the waiting list, and we're launching the 15th. So, get in. And I also want to remind you that the show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.